Welcome to the Business Outlook Survey press conference call. I'm Tom Elliott in the Public Affairs Department. With me today is Mike Trebbing, Senior Economic Analyst in the Research Department. Today, we're going to talk about what manufacturing firms had to say about business activity in April. First, Mike will give us a summary of today's report.
Thanks, Tom. Indexes from our April manufacturing survey indicate that manufacturing activity in our region is continuing on a short-run growth path. All of the current broad indicators were positive this month and also increased from the readings in March. That is, firms reported an overall rise in activity, new orders, shipments, and employment this month compared to March. Price pressures also remain moderate, according to the polled firms, and the 6-month forecast indicators remain generally optimistic about future growth, although the readings moderated from previous high levels. Also point out that in our special questions this month, we ask our manufacturers about factors that affect the firm's location decisions, and labor market supply and cost issues were the most frequently cited in terms of relative importance of remaining in the region.
Thanks, Mike. We're going to open it up to reporters for questions. I'll go first to Richard from Reuters.
I want, first of all, to just kind of get a sense right now in terms of in the survey, any impact that you see in terms of still from the harsh winter weather, where do we stand and what are respondents saying about those things, about the weather impact?
Right. Well, as you know, our numbers were negative in February. We had, 1 month indication that we had reduction in activity and shipments and orders, and all of the indicators were negative. This is the second month we've had in terms of a bounce back, if you will. Some of it is related to a spring uptick that we always see, but even on a seasonally adjusted basis, this month at least we're seeing a better than normal growth rate for orders and especially shipments this month. The comments are still coming in about weather. Some firms have benefited in terms of the kind of products that they're producing, and others are indicating that their shipments have rallied, compared to previous months. They're catching up a bit with orders. So as we go further and further from the weather impacts, the numbers will look hopefully more normal. And this month we're seeing growth in almost all of the indicators, all the broad indicators, suggesting we've got some continued improvement.
Any follow-up questions, Richard?
We see I think what I want to get is a better sense in terms of looking forward, perhaps, on what the business outlook is, that we have this kind of winter depressed condition from the first quarter behind us. I mean, what's the general take in terms of business hiring and business investment going forward, that's shown in this latest report?
Yeah, I guess in terms of employment, we still have, over a quarter of the firms indicating that they're going to increase employment over the next 6 months. That was down a little bit from about a third of the firms last month, but those numbers are still continuing to look okay. Very rarely will the firms, tie their comments about the 6-month forecast in their commentary. However, they generally speak, I think, to the overall optimism of the 6-month indicators that firms are, on balance, optimistic. Not all of them are, and some of them are still uncertain about whether recent improvement is temporary or permanent. So that may explain why the numbers aren't as high as we've seen them, but still, on balance, the firms are still optimistic about growth, and not any comments that I can recall weather related to your initial question.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Mhm.
All right, great. I'm going to go now to Jane from the Inquirer.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to talk about the special question in particular, and if you could just discuss, I mean, what we hear so often is about the taxities, subsidies, and regulations. You know, that's what the business people seem to want, and also what they complain the most about. What did you notice about that in particular
Mhm.
in this survey?
Yeah, well, we asked this month about the factors that affected firms' decisions to stay in the region, and we provided them a list of factors, and we asked them to tell us whether they were, you know, most relevant, very relevant, somewhat relevant, or not relevant at all. And then we tallied the results and found that you know, mostly labor type factors. In particular, this month, the availability of skilled labor was most cited in terms of being very or most relevant. In fact, I think about 20% of the firms indicated that it was the most important factor. And close behind that was taxes, subsidies, and regulation, and cost of energy, and then proximity to customers and distribution channels and suppliers and raw materials. A smaller percent thought it was the most relevant. But we also asked them about which of those factors was becoming more important over time, and about the same distribution with availability of skilled labor being at the top of the list in terms of it becoming a more important factor. So the location type questions were less important relative to the labor issues. It wasn't a question about ordering problems, and it wasn't indicative of whether the region is applying those factors appropriately. It's just it kind of pinpointed what's important to these firms in terms of retaining their location here.
This question says your firm's decision to remain here,
Right.
remain in this region. So and so nearly 2/3 are saying, and when you look at also somewhat relevant, virtually all of them are saying it seems like that since the decision is to remain, that they must be satisfied with the availability of skilled labor. Am I am I making too many leaps here, or can you explain that?
No, I think
it says the word remain is key to me here.
Right. I think it's. We've had other questions in the past where we've asked that, and also about problems that firms are having, and this availability of skilled labor tends to be growing in importance in terms of the ranking of problems. So again, the question was intended to indicate what's important to them rather than a question that was a measure of whether they're satisfied or not. We will be following up with questions in the near future that will get a better handle on that, and we have addressed that in other surveys. But it's still, I think, relevant that they think that issue, those cost of labor and availability of skilled laborers, they feel it's becoming more important to them in terms of their location decision.
And it's also interesting that when you hear from people touting this particular region, one of the main things they talk about it is its geographic position, the Keystone State, and the combination of the two rivers, particularly the Delaware and the highway network and the airport, and yet that didn't seem to be the key factor. I mean, how do you and how do you explain that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we gave them each of these factors to rank in terms of relative importance. For many firms, those are the most important elements. But when we aggregate the numbers, we had kind of a pattern, I guess, that the supply and demand of labor continues to be important to the firm. So it's not to dismiss those. We realize that other amenities, including proximity to customers and suppliers, et cetera, are important. But keep in mind that we were just looking for which is growing more important in the minds of these firms.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, well, no, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I lost what I was going to say here. I mean, I know I have more questions about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, maybe, is there any possibility that because they're already, this is a question addressed to people who are already here.
Of course, yes.
So sort of, once you're here, the location is kind of an unchanging factor. I mean, you're here.
Right. We have.
So,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And so what could change? What could change then, I guess? Like, what is a potential moving part?
Mm-hmm.
And you could see, like, the moving things that could move, it could shift, like whether labor is unavailable or not, or the cost goes up or down, or
Right.
increased taxes, et cetera, energy. Those seem to be high. I mean, do you think there's any explanation in that once you're here, the location is a given?
No, we have asked this question in the past, quite some time ago, where we broke it into incentives to leave and incentives to stay. We chose
Oh,
not
that's interesting.
We chose not to do that this time, but, and not surprising, when we did that. The most important thing was the fixed investments that they had made in the region, their plant and equipment. You just can't pick it up and move it. So this is a little bit of a different question, and maybe offline I could give you some references to other things we've done in this regard.
Okay.
A little
I'll
bit
look for that.
a little bit of a different perspective. None of these questions give us the answers to all of those questions, but maybe we can have a discussion about that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sure,
All right.
we'll set something up after the call then, Jane, okay?
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Fantastic. I'm going to go back to Richard. You still in line? Any follow-up questions? I think he's gone.
I think just follow up to what Jane have regarding about the special question. I think it is kind of interesting, but it doesn't really kind of tell me that much in terms of then the more of the dynamic of things. I think it would be more interesting to kind of overlay these questions and asking these firms that have either moved in or left the region to find out how they rank in point of these factors that was
That's a
asked.
good point.
Because I think then you have a better sense in terms of, more from a better snapshot of the more kind of dynamic, more of the dynamic or changing forces of how different firms might view about whether staying in one particular region or another. Because obviously, from a policy perspective,
Right.
how do you go moving forward in terms of trying to reduce, all this, do they obviously have to collectively trying to cultivate a better pool of skilled laborers, and also in terms of for local governments and state governments, what did they do about tax incentives? Because obviously that's a big policy question that a lot of state governments that they have, especially if they create these tax incentives to bring business into their city or into their states.
Yeah, I think the one thing to keep in mind is that the focus of the survey is really to give us information about very short-run trends. The nature of the questions are change from month to month, and they have been. The fact that we have this group of firms that we've been reporting a long time, it's a fixed group that we can rely on to give us answers. But these firms have been around for a while, and your comments are well taken. And we're always willing to accept ideas about how to make these surveys a little bit better in those other special subjects, if you will.
All right. Did you have any other follow-up questions, Richard?
Nope. That's all for me.
All right, and we'll set up a call, Jane. Thank you both
Okay.
for calling in today.
Okay,
That
great.
was a great
Thank you for
discussion.
arranging it.
Absolutely. Bye-bye now.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Everybody. Bye.
All right. A quick announcement before we end this BOS. Starting next month, these press conference calls will be audio only. However, there will be no change to their format or availability. They'll continue to be posted online and embedded in the HTML version of the survey. Look for next month's survey at 10 a.m. Thursday, May 15th.